Okay, so we're going to continue our studies, extra biblical studies, or this week, this week with the 12th planet, just an introduction to the 12th planet epic, because there's quite a bit to it. And I have a series of a book series of 7 books that covers the Samaritan text. I also have the Hammurabi text, Enuma Elish. I have the Emerald Tablets, uh, all those that I've studied. And it's interesting information. And what has happened is, since I started looking back at it and beginning to teach it, I've been getting a lot of news articles because I have a subscription to Archaeology Review and things like that that I keep up with. I've been following archaeology for oh my goodness, long time, many years. And so I'm familiar with a lot of the things that they're coming up with, but these books that I have that I shake the dust off of, they're not that old really, but I say shaking dust off because I haven't been looking at them that much until recently. But since I started, again, like I said, I've been getting these articles. Maybe it's because the AI is listening in or whatever, but even today, just today, I was looking at an article, and I'll share that with you while we getting ready to move into it. And this is because I check, I like to keep up, kind of looking with current events and stuff like that. But this, uh, if you can see my screen, talk about its lifestyle, and it's about. See if I. Okay, so 12 shots, and it says researchers have unearthed an ancient discovery that predates the emergence of Homo sapiens, as reported in Nature. So they're finding that there were cultures, before, right, when they thought it was. So they're looking back 476,000 years ago. Now, the latest, previously, you'd read, they were saying like 300,000 years. But they're looking at tools, that they're discovering tools. And these Homo sapiens were constructing and doing construction, and they had tools. And let me see, there's another one. There's actually a bunch of them because they're talking about the other Earth and all this stuff today too. And then here's one of the tools in this year. You see one of the tools they made. And this was half a million years. Uh, so it says it hadn't seen sunlight in a 500,000 years. So you know, that's saying that what we are studying now puts us ahead of the curve if we, if of where they are just getting to. Well, I've been already studying, and there's in the group that I study with, these researchers and stuff that I keep up with, been studying for years. And I said the gentleman, the Jewish gentleman that Zechariah Sitchin, he passed, I think, in 2012, but he's an expert in cuneiform and all this kind of stuff. So he spent his lifetime doing this research. So they've already been saying what they're just not publishing now, but I know that they already knew these things, but I think they were just holding back on the information because, oh, well, for various reasons. Okay. And so, but now that the information is out because we're in the information age, now they're just saying, okay, we just may as well start letting that information out. So this is, again, we'll shed some light on some of the information. And if you study ancient civilization, usually in college they give you these, these electives that you can do, and a lot of times we study ancient civilizations. I did it in Bible college. I had to look at a different, uh, I guess, creation stories, you know, and we were looking at the uh, how uh, much they were saying the same things, uh, but they were saying it in accordance to their culture. And of course, with the discoveries, when they always talking about Atlantis and things of that nature, Atlantis, where we were taught is, you know, fiction or, a legend. But when you study it through scientific and archaeological perspective, you'll find that Atlantis was not just a place. There were several places all over the earth, which is why we have so many pyramids on the different continents uh, using the same technology because they were not localized, okay? Uh, and they were very advanced. So hopefully, and there will you'll have your questions. There will be questions, and some of the questions I won't have answers to right away, but I can get the answers to them because I have them here. I just have to go back and pull out my notes and get the information. But I'm looking at from the 12th planet, in the book, The 12th Planet, I'm looking at the epic of creation, how it all began, the creation story, as told from the uh, uh, Sumerian text, or from Mesopotamia, or from Ur the Chaldeans. All of those people, you count them into the same group, and because they're in the same area in what we call today Central Asia or the Middle East, Iraq, Iran, Syria, in that area. So this is it's coming out more and more that this is where the advanced civilization occurred, as if overnight. The technology was just there. It was gone. Then all of a sudden they've got these great civilizations pre-flood. Okay, so ours from the Torah, which is where we get our foundation from, the further back that we can go with in depth is probably Book of Enoch, and he gives quite a bit, and of course, Book of Jubilees. But Enoch is attributed to a lot of the writings that we have came from his time before the flood, and he gives a lot of information. However, the thing that we have to really look at is who our instructors are or were, and what was their level of understanding that they received from their teachers. And so how were their instructors indoctrinized? Because if they, for a time, Christianity was ruling, and they believed and they held to certain aspects that people wouldn't go against before they might get burned at the stake, called a witch. If they said the earth was round, you could stand to get killed just for saying the earth was round when they believed that the world was flat. Up until the 1400s, we know at least in the 1400s, they thought it was flat. So that means there was a regression in knowledge of creation, or the European did not know that the world was round. However, in Mesopotamia, in Israel, in Africa, we knew, our ancestors knew that the world was round, and they had other facts. And so this epic of creation from the book of the 12th planet from Zechariah Sitchin is very interesting, very interesting. And so what I would do is it's a comparison to what we have in our creation story. So we all know our creation story, Bereshit bara Elohim, and we know about the 6 days of creation. And in the book of Jubilees, started in that second chapter, it goes into our creation story a little more in depth than the King James does, okay? And so, but in the Samaritan text, which is older than our Bible, our Torah, the Sumerian text, okay? The Sumerian text is older than our Bible. These texts are much older than ours, okay? They date way back, way back. So this is what we're looking at. And we're seeing, well, let me put it this way. It's interesting in the way that they portrayed the history of creation. They do it in a way that it sounds like all the planets have names and they call them gods. And of course, the Greeks borrowed from that and they built on that. Because remember, the Greeks, they were up there in Europe, world flat. But when they got a hold to the Samaritan text, then they started to see some of their images and come to find out, it was proven that the Sumerians were right. But where did they get that knowledge? That's the question. But we're going to read some of the knowledge that they had. Again, we're going to just kind of glance, get a little bit of what knowledge they had on the solar system, okay? And they had more information than we have today. So it was like the 16th, 17th, 18th century when we started to find out there were more planets than than they thought there were. Okay, we as Africans, we knew there were more, but being brought up in European custom and teachings, of course, we were shorted from what our ancestors knew. Okay, and so it's just to begin with. This is chapter 7 in that book, the 12th planet, because it deals with the creation. Again, be aware that the way they portray it, it's like a story, and it's about the gods, and they give the names of the planets as gods, actual beings, and they talk about the creation story as a war in the heavens, okay, a heavenly war. So just be aware of that. Again, different cultures, different time, different way of thinking, and the men of Samaria were taught this, okay, by someone else, okay? And you get that in the book of Enoch, tells you who those people were that taught the Sumerians the story and taught them astronomy and astrology. We know that they talk about Samizar and all the angels. Well, this is where the Sumerians got their information from, okay? It didn't drop out of the sky. They didn't just come up with it out of their head. They were taught it, okay? And in our Bible, well, the Sephir, the Sephirim, the Sephirs, the book of the Sephir that we have gives us the information that we can get from the book of Enoch. And the book of Enoch, and that was actually taken from Sumerian text, okay? They actually pulled things from the Sumerian text and built our Bibles with. So it says, it begins talking about cylinder scrolls. So it says, on most of the ancient cylinder seals, okay, that have been found, symbols that stand for certain celestial bodies members of our solar system appear above the figures of God and human. So they have, let me share this with you. I'm gonna share this from a PDF so you can see what he's talking about. So Zechariah Senshin is talking about this seal right here. I'm gonna blow it up just a little bit. And so what he says that it's that the solar system would appear above the figures of gods or humans. So these figures are supposed to be gods, okay, as depicted in Sumerian texts. And right here, you'll see this star with planets around it. That's the solar system. So we know that they knew that the sun and that the planets that our planets went around the sun. It shows it. It shows, and it shows, now uh, uh, they have names. Again, they gave them names, and like Pluto and Mars, but they had different names, and we'll see those in the future, in the very near future. So before the flood, ancient Sumerians, during the time when before Abraham was even there, before he was there, before the flood, they already knew. Sumerians already knew, those that were in Mesopotamia already knew about the solar system and how it was arranged. And if you look at it, they see the different sizes is a depiction of the sizes of the planets. Okay, it's a schematic, meaning it's not done to scale, but it gives you a representation that some of the celestial bodies were larger than others. Okay, that's what that's showing. And how would they know that in that time? How could primitive men, as we were taught, how could primitive men with no telescopes, and know about the sun? Well, we know the Europeans were not exposed to this information, so they thought the world was flat, and they thought that you could fall off. Whereas these people in Samaria, across the Mediterranean Sea, south of the Mediterranean Sea, off the border of Turkey, down in Syria, and some of the Turks actually had to know it because I knew they had commerce between there, knew the solar system properly and understood it, understood the course of the planets. Okay, so it says, and now an Akkadian seal. See, these are different seals. These are different artifacts. An Akkadian seal from the 3rd millennium BC, now at the Vordenschutz. This is a German place. Okay, it's a state museum in East Berlin. Okay, so you know if this is in East Berlin, so that lets you know that when they were down in our lands, that they were taking our information back to Europe, which is, so they got our knowledge. They gained from our knowledge, all right? And they put it, and they've got it in their museums. Okay, it says, and it says, departs from the usual manner of depicting celestial bodies. It does not show them individually, but rather as a group of 11 globes encircling a large rayed star. It is clearly a depiction of the solar system as it was known to the Sumerians, a system consisting of 12 celestial bodies. Listen, it says 12 celestial bodies. Okay, so we're taught 7, or at most 9 at best, 7, and then they want to drop Pluto off, make it a dwarf. It's still a planet, but it's a dwarf planet. Okay, so, but the interesting thing is that the Sumerians knew about it, and in Black Root's history, Black Root science, which is coming from the continent of Africa proper, they knew the same thing. they knew the same thing. So they were interacting with these beings or these people that Enoch tells us about or teaches us about. The book of Enoch teaches us about. Okay. And of course in the King James it only hits a little bit where it says the sons of God saw the daughters of man that they were fair, in sixth chapter of Genesis. But Enoch goes deeper and he tells that they were on Mount Hermon. They came down, 200 of them came down to Mount Hermon. So these terrestrial beings, celestial beings, came down to earth on Mount Hermon. So that's how we got the information. And it tells how they taught weapons and how, all during that time with it. So they taught the Sumerians and those that are in that area, Middle East, as we call it today, they taught them these things. They didn't just come up with it on their own. Somebody gave it to them. And of course, we're told that they're angels or the Anakim, or the Watchers. Let me correct that. We were taught that they're called the Watchers. Okay, and that's what we call it. Well, they're the Watchers. They came down, and then questions would arise in my mind, and especially when I read the New Testament where Yeshua says, after we die, we won't be like we'll be like the angels, not given in marriage or marrying. So the angels don't have intercourse, according to Yeshua. And so who were these people, or who were these beings that came and desired flesh and had intercourse? Of course, we're taught theologically in the schools that they were angels. Okay, and we know the interaction of angels when we look at Abraham and the prophets. They're not interested in flesh. They're not interested in flesh because they're not flesh. They don't have the emotions that we have of flesh. They're different. They exist. We live, they exist. They're outside of time. They're different created. They are celestial beings. They're not terrestrial beings. They are celestial beings. And there's a difference. Okay? There is a difference. But we're taught by Western culture. I don't know what their motivation or motive behind it is, but this is how they have taught us. And this is the danger of us getting our hands on information, because we start to look at it and analyze it, and we see, wait a minute, these guys, something wrong. Especially when we can see now in stone that they knew about the solar system and they knew the planets, okay? So, I'm gonna go to another slide, look here and look at it. All right, so this is another depiction, a larger with the names, okay? And I'm gonna see if I'm gonna go back a little bit, because this is when it shows Earth, this is a later version. So I want to see if I can go back a little bit further. Okay, this is another depiction of what they pulled all these off of cuneiform and descriptions. They drew these in accordance to what is in the writings, by the way. Okay, and I'm trying to see if I can find something. That's a spaceship. We're not talking about those right now. We're talking about something else. That's landing. Oh, I don't, maybe I can't find it. Maybe in a different section. I was going to try to find the Earth. It's not Earth, it's the sun, and I think Mars, and what was not Earth. It was a different planet. It was Tiamat. And there's an article about Tiamat. Oh, there it is. Okay, I was back. There it is. Okay. So this is when we talk about in the beginning, before the Earth was, this is how it looked. It was our sun, and this is in early creation. The sun and Mercury and Tiamat, which is now Earth, okay, and which is what we're looking at today. We're moving toward in this lesson. So there were only three a part of the solar system in the beginning, and then it began to be in the beginning when he created. So we're talking about in the beginning, bara Elohim, okay, so, and it talks about, again, that first day. So that's how it started. You had to put the sun there because that's where our source of life, the beginning of life begins with the sun, okay? So it says, in 101, so it doesn't put the names on it like the other, but Earth wasn't there, it was Tiamat, and it was larger than Earth, okay? So it says the ancient depiction shows a planet unknown to us, considerably larger than Earth, yet smaller than Jupiter and Saturn, okay? So, but they knew about Jupiter and Saturn when we didn't find out about it, or the West didn't find out about Jupiter and Saturn until 18th century. They got telescopes. But again, the Sumerians already drawing them and putting them in stone. So moving right along, okay, it says, so let me go back to that again. It says the ancient depiction that shows a planet known to us considerably larger than Earth, yet smaller than Jupiter and Saturn, which clearly follow it. Further on, another pair perfectly matches our Uranus and Neptune. Finally, the smallish Pluto is also there, but not where we know, not where we now place it. Instead, it appears between Saturn and Uranus. Let me do something here. Let me stop this share. I'll come back to this in just a moment. I'm gonna do something else. Okay. There, I got it. I got an electronic version of it. Okay. So it's this is where I was. It says Saturn, and then it says treating the moon as a proper celestial body. The Sumerians' depiction fully accounts for all of our known planets, places them in correct order with the exception of Pluto, and shows them by size. So again, ancients before the flood were ahead of us in knowing the solar system. Ancients knew. It says the 4,500-year-old depiction, however, 4,500 years, okay, also insists that there was or has been another major planet between Mars and Jupiter, okay? They knew of another planet that was there. It is as we shall show the 12th planet, the planet of the Nephilim. So the name of that planet is Marduk or Nibiru. I'll just put it that way. That's the name of it. Okay, that planet is Nibiru, and it comes in about every 3,600 years. It comes and it goes opposite the other planets. The planets goes counterclockwise, but Nibiru it goes the opposite way, and it's proclaimed to be the home of the Nephilim. Okay, it says, and the Sumerians depict that in their drawings and in their writings, not just in drawings, but they have it written in cuneiform. Okay, they have that, and not only do they have it, but the Hammurabi, the Indians, have the same story, just the different names because they have a different language, but they say the same things about the solar system. But you know, why didn't the Europeans have it? Why wasn't it in Europe? It was because they said, don't take it to the hairy cavemen. Okay, that's what it said. That's what uh, uh, one of the ancient writers said, don't give it to the cavemen. Now they weren't ignorant people; they were very intelligent, but they were not. They knew what they were going to do if once they got their hands on it. They were going to bring war. Okay, so it says if the Sumerian celestial map had been discovered and studied 2 centuries ago, astronomers would have deemed the Sumerians totally uninformed, foolishly imagining more planets beyond Saturn. So, again, 2 centuries ago, when they started looking at the sun and looking at things, they didn't have an understanding of what the Sumerians had. Okay, it says now, however, we know that Uranus and Neptune and Pluto are really there. They didn't know, again, the Europeans didn't know they were there. And I'm talking 17th, 18th century. They didn't know they were there until he says, did the Sumerians imagine the other discrepancies, or were they properly informed by the Nephilim? Well, we know it was Nephilim. The Nephilim taught them because, again, they came down on Mount Hermon, according to the book of Enoch, and they taught them various practices, and they taught them sciences. They taught them all, and they hid Ham's great-grandson or grandson hid the books, and they had the books, and they were still in what we call the modern day Middle East. Okay, they were there. Of course, their relatives were in Kemet, so of course they're going to share the information with their relatives, and they did. All right. So the Nephilim, we know their source of information, the Sumerians' source of information was the Nephilim. The Nephilim were a terrestrial being. Okay, they came from somewhere else. Okay, the people of Africa knew it, people of Samaria knew it, and the people of India knew it. Of course, the Indians, Seth, Shem, the line of Shems in India, they were all informed. They had the information. Okay, it says, and by the way, when I say the hairy northern, that has nothing to do with Japheth. Japheth wasn't around during that time. Okay, it was the Danuvians and the other people like that were up there. Okay, in the north. So he said the Sumerians didn't imagine, or it says they were properly informed by the Nephilim, that the moon was a member of the solar system in its own right. Pluto was located near Saturn, and there was a 12th planet between Mars and Jupiter. The long-held theory that the moon was nothing more than a frozen golf ball was not discarded until the successful conclusion of several U.S. Apollo missions. So look how long ago the Sumerians knew, and they just not finding out about it during the Apollo missions. That's how far behind we are than our forefathers were. They were way ahead of us. Way ahead. They said the moon was a chunk of matter that had separated from Earth when Earth was still molten and plastic. And were it not for the impact of millions of meteorites, which left craters on the face of the moon, it would have been faceless, lifeless, historyless, a piece of matter, and solidified and forever follows the Earth. That's not, according to the Sumerians, that's not it. Okay. So it says, I'm gonna go down a little bit. It says experiments conducted on the moon by American astronauts and the study and analysis of the soil and rock samples they brought back have established beyond a doubt that the moon, though presently barren, was once a living planet. Okay, like Earth, it is layered, which means it is a solidified. It's solidified from its own original molten stage. Like Earth, it generated heat. But whereas the Earth's heat comes from the radioactive materials cooked inside the Earth tremendous pressure. The moon's heat comes apparently from layers of radioactive material lying near the surface. So the moon, again, was depicted as one of the planets, and it was, and it was, a living planet. But something happened. Something changed that. Same thing that changed Tiamat. Okay. It says Apollo 16 astronauts found on the moon rocks called brachias that result from the shattering of solid rock and its re-welding together by extreme and sudden heat. So something happened. So they know that something happened. It says, and when and how were these rocks shattered then is refused. Other surface materials on the moon are rich in rare radioactive potassium and phosphorus materials that on Earth are deep down inside. Something happened to create the moon and to establish. Now, this is the same depiction that I had on the PDF, and it shows the sun and the planets around it, of course. And this is again in Sumerian. It's just like when you go in. This is not Egypt. This is before Egypt, before the pyramids in Egypt. This is in Sumerian, the Sumerian text. So just a point of reference that a lot of times we're taught that all the technology was in Mitzrayim or in Egypt, but that's not true either. The truth is that the technology was spread, but the central point of contact at this stage that we're looking at was when they came down to Mount Hermon in that area in Mesopotamia and began to instruct men. Okay, but historically in the documents, it shows that they were here even before men were here. Okay, that's another. We'll get into that later on. Maybe. Okay. It says, putting such findings together, scientists are now certain that the moon and Earth formed of roughly the same elements at about the same time, evolved as separate celestial bodies. In the opinion of scientists of the U.S. Naval Aeronautics and Space Administration, the moon evolved normally for its first 500 million years. Then they said, as reported in the New York Times. Okay. So again, I guess the thing I want to pull out of this is that what we know about the solar system today, for us as new knowledge, is new knowledge for, I should say, for modern day society is new knowledge, but in the Middle East, it's ancient knowledge and history. So okay, I'm not gonna go in this. This is still talking about NASA and the astronauts landing on the moon and all this kind of stuff, and finding out that they didn't know what they were, they didn't know anything. Actually, that's what it means. They really didn't know anything. Okay. So they call planet Pluto the Enigma. Okay. So again, they finally found out about Pluto, and Pluto is a dwarf planet. Actually, the moon was larger at one time. The moon was larger, but it shrank in size after the collision. Okay. It says, let me go back. I got to go back. So I think I missed something. Okay. In size, Pluto is indeed in the satellite class. Its diameter is 3,600 miles. It is not much greater than that of Triton, a satellite of Neptune, or Titan 1 of the 10 satellites of Saturn. Because of its unusual characteristic, it has been suggested that this misfit might have started its celestial life as a satellite that somehow escapes its master and went into orbit around the sun on its own. So what they're doing is building up to the creation of Earth as we know it today. He says, this is as well as we shall soon see is indeed what happened according to the Sumerian text, okay? And that's what we're talking about. Something happened. Something happened, okay? So I'm gonna go over here for just a minute. Back to my can y'all see this diagram? I don't want to have to shut it down and come back to it, but I want to kind of go up. Okay, yeah, this is a depiction of what the names that the Sumerians gave the solar system, the planets, and for them, they treated them like we would treat a god or a living entity or person. Okay, they treat them like persons actually in the cosmos. So it says, and the names, the sun was Apsu. Okay, again, remember these are, now when you go over to India and the Hammurabi, they have different names. You go into Egypt, they give them different names, and they name them, they give them the god names, like, the, what is his name? Ra, Ra. So in Egyptian tongue, in the Egyptian tongue, they give this names in the Egyptian tongue, just like the Sumerians give it in their tongue, okay? So it says the sun was Apsu, and then Mercury was Mumu, Venus is Loham, Mars, Venus was Lahamu, and Mars was Lahmu. This is the pair. This is Tiamat. Tiamat is the interesting one, the one that we're interested in our studies. And then Jupiter, Kishar, and Saturn, Anshar, and Pluto was Gaga. So they all had their names. And they, again, these are godlike, okay? Or
I'm sorry, Rabbi.
Yes.
I'm not sure if you need to switch because we're still seeing the table of content.
Oh, okay. Let me. Okay. I thought so. I want to make sure. I didn't think it switched over. Okay. Now you can see. You see Tiamat.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, that's okay. I had to stop the share to start them again. All right. So again, they gave them their names. Now, this, well, it's more of a, um, they teach us about Greek mythology and stuff like that, but we should have been probably looking more at Sumerian the teachings, but again, we were transplanted to the West, and they're going to give it the way they want it. So what I want to do here, because again, I know it's going to take a lot of time, so I'm just going to, for right now, just show you a map of the solar system as the Samaritans were taught, again, by those that came down Mount Hermon and taught them about the solar system, taught them mathematics and about war and painting and about the stars, and all this stuff was taught by those that came down in Mount Hermon. And right here is Marduk, or this is the planet of the Anunnaki. This is their planet. And if you look at, you see the arrows show the path of our solar, the planets in our solar system. All right. And remember, I gave you the names, and so you see, Air wasn't in that group, but it's a part of Anu, Gaga, right? Anshur, Kishar, and Mumu, and Lahama, and Amo. So the inner planets, right? And Tiamat, which is ancient Earth, larger than Earth as a planet. In that, so what's happened is ours are going counterclockwise, but this Marduk is kind of like a comet. It's going opposite, and it was on a direct course. The original path, as you can see, the dotted line shows the original path, but something happened. And this is what we're talking about in the beginning when Yah created the heavens and the earth, right? So this is what happened. The pathway of Nuburu, I'm going to use that name instead of Marduk, which is a god, the name of a god, all right? Nuburu changes course because of the gravitational pull of these planets together. They pull him into a direct path of Tiamat, all right? Now, Tiamat had its own moon, Kingu. And so it would look like they're going to hit, but they don't hit. They don't hit. They don't clash. All right. Here's the pathway. We'll get into this. I just wanted to do an overview of it before we get into it. But here's Marduk, and here's Tiamat. They missed. But the satellite planets from Marduk hit Tiamat and broke it up. Now, Kingu, right, is the moon that satellites around Tiamat. Tiamat was split and it became Earth. The lower portion of it, okay, the lower portion of it became the asteroid belt, separating the inner planets from the outer planets. So that's, and I hit that a little bit last week, but that's what these are indicating. So because of time, I want to read something else. I'm going to stop the share, and we're going to get to this more because it has to show how what, and this is coming from the Samaritan text, how it happened and how they describe the events that took place. But I want to read something that I thought was interesting from the ancient text during Enoch's time. And let me see here. Let me read some of this from Enoch's time, just a little bit. All right. And this is from, now people attribute this thought to Enoch. They call him thrice, meaning he came 3 times. He manifests 3 times. Okay, so it says, listen, O man, to the deep hidden wisdom, lost to the world since the time of the dwellers, lost and forgotten by men of this age. Know ye this earth is but a portal, guarded by powers unknown to man. Yet the dark lords hide the entrance that leads to the heaven-born land. Know ye the way to the sphere of Urulu is guarded by barriers open only to the light-born man. It says, upon earth I am a holder of the keys to the gates of the sacred land. When we read Enoch, now when you go back and read Enoch, listen, pay attention to what Enoch says, especially when it talks about his visions and dreams, okay? It says, I am the holder of the keys to the gates of the sacred land. Command I by the powers beyond me to lead the keys to the world of men. Before I depart, I give ye the secrets of how ye may rise from bondage of darkness, cast off the fetters of flesh that have bound you, and rise from the darkness into the light. So it is said about Enoch that he taught righteousness and he taught eternal life. All right. So again, it says, know ye, the soul must be cleansed of its darkness. Got to be saved, right? Ere ye may enter the portals of light. Thus I establish among ye the mysteries, so that the secrets may always be found. Yea, though man may fall into darkness, always the light will shine as a guide, hidden in darkness, veiled in symbols. Always the way to the portal will be found. It says, man in the future will deny the mysteries. This is where we are today. Man in the future will deny the mysteries, but always the way the seeker will find. Now I command you to maintain my secrets, giving only to those ye have tested, so that the pure may not be corrupted, so that the power of truth may prevail. It says, list ye now to the unveiling of the mystery. List the symbols of mystery I give. Make it this I found was peculiar. It says, make it a religion. Make it a religion, for only thus will its essence remain. So that's why we have religion. Because people attach themselves to religion readily. Okay. He said, regions, there are two between this life and the great one, traveled by souls who depart from the earth. Okay. So I'm not going to go any further than that. But that is some of what was Enoch was teaching. And remember, Enoch wrote several hundred books. He wrote hundreds of books. And this is just one of them. I believe this is just one of them. They changed the name. Okay, but it's the same person writing these materials, and it comes out of, again, we have some of it out of the Sefer, but this is from Sumerian texts and tablets, okay, that they found. Now, this was found in Egypt, actually. This tablet was found in Egypt at the Great Sphinx in that area. So, but what he's talking about is the light and darkness. He's talking about the things that we're learning in the Torah, okay? How to escape the world system and how to rise above. If you make a mistake, you fall and you get back up. The light is always there. The truth is always there. The way out of darkness is always before us. And it says today, like people say, they don't believe God, they don't believe, do you believe that stuff? And they don't believe it. He said, people are not going to believe it. Today, they don't believe it. And they frown on people that do believe it. So we are there. We're in that time and in that place. And the ancient wisdom that we learn from the scripture, modern man is just finding out. But we have been, for the most part, deprived of the information simply because they just don't want people to know the truth of that Yah created everything, but there were other people involved. There were other entities involved, and we were made to think something other than, there are the angels, and then there are these other people, these other creatures, or people, I just call them people, that were here instructing us. But that doesn't take away from the angels that are around the throne, that are spiritual and never took flesh, never were flesh, okay? Never were flesh, and they had no desire for flesh. They did what they're called and told to do. They're created to do. That's what they do. But they're, again, it says worlds, he created the worlds, and we're taught and we've been brought to think that we're the only ones. But they're finding out now that we're not the only one. And again, our ancestors already knew that. Our ancestors already knew that we were not the only ones. Okay, and again, the West, like they tell us, it says, put the seat all the way on the four corners of the garment, meaning all the way around it. The West says just four corner garment, put it on the four corners, because they don't think like we do. And so they taught us, tried to get us, indoctrinate us into the way that they think, but we think differently. We are a different people. We are not all the same. We're not all the same. So I'm gonna stop the recording right there. Oh my goodness. Just a minute, I gotta figure this thing out. Now I'm getting lost here. I'm still in I'm not sharing my screen, am I?
No, you're not, but the recording is
Okay.
still going.
I'm
That circle at the bottom.
yeah, I'm all messed up here. Look at this. I can't even see a circle at the bottom. This is terrible. It's not even showing it. Isn't that something? Usually I don't have a problem with it. Today, something's going on. All right, there it is. Finally,